So welcome to the GENEDGE webinar on cybersecurity. I'm going to spend the next hour trying to give you a little bit of an insight into what business leaders need to know about cybersecurity, and not so much from an IT point of view or a technical point of view, but understanding really more of the risk management point of view and what companies need to be concerned about. A couple of housekeeping things. If you have any questions that you want to send to me, I have everybody muted. So there's a chat box over on the left-hand side that you should be able to turn on. And there's an icon on the left-hand side that looks like a screen with some lines on it, and that should allow you to be able to type into the box. So with no further ado, first of all, let me just give you a very brief introduction of who we are, because a lot of folks are not aware of the connection between the U.S. Department of Commerce and the Commonwealth of Virginia. So GENEDGE as an organization is a nonprofit consulting group that is the manufacturing extension partner for the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we're part of state government for Virginia. So we're partially funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce, NIST, and we're partially funded by the Commonwealth of Virginia, which allows us to be able to provide services at a very high level that are more affordable than if folks are trying to buy consulting services in the general market. And so where that becomes important through the rest of this presentation is that we're in the process of forming up a group of cyber technology companies that we can help connect between the client community and these cyber companies, so that you know ahead of time that these folks are vetted, that they're local, and that they're focused on smaller businesses inside of Virginia. A couple of things that we do from the left to the right is basically we help companies understand how to grow their businesses and how to use, what we're getting to is how to use cybersecurity to make your company more stable, make your company more reliable, and make your company a better partner so that you end up selling more business. And then we go through a spectrum of different services, which I'm not going to talk to today. So the first thing I want you to know as we start this is there's probably something on your system that is already there that you're not aware of. It could be a monitoring virus. It could be a keyboard monitoring type of a virus. It could be something with a timer on it that may go off in the future. It could be a whole host of different things that you need to be aware of. There is no such thing as cybersecurity. You won't be 100% secure. It's really a matter of more or less secure. You cannot achieve 100% system security unless you pull the plugs and stop people from using it. Because cybersecurity threats are not just coming from the outside of the company, they're also coming from the inside of the company. And the level of cybersecurity that you're able to achieve is really a matter of money and priorities. Where do you want to spend your money, and where are you able to spend your time? So this is to give you a bit of insight into the types and levels of security problems that we're facing today. There's a lot of new attacks and vulnerabilities being introduced out into the world on a daily basis. So just for last year, you can see we're talking about quite a big number of attacks, things being stolen, people's systems being hijacked for ransom. It goes on and on. one key thing here to think about in these statistics is that last one, mobile vulnerabilities. We're using smartphones more and more. We're using smart devices more and more, tablets, smart everything, and we'll get into what some of those things are. But those vulnerabilities are increasing at a very high level, and that's something that business leaders really need to keep in the back of your mind. Why are we talking about small businesses being a key part of this environment? A very high percentage of just phishing attacks, meaning an email comes in that says, hey, click on this link and go here and look at or do something. Those things are being written very, very sophisticated so that they look very genuine. They actually look like they're coming from within your own company or from within your own partners, clients, and suppliers, so that you will take action. Once you take action, that opens up your system and somebody's able to get in. You go, well, why are they coming in to get us? Well, we'll talk about that specifically, but think about this. The small business is the weak link in the chain. So the bad guys might not be trying to come in and shut you down or take your things, but what they might be trying to do is use you as a springboard to another company or another entity. So they use you as a leap pad, and the more open you are and the more you're connected to outside entities, the more a threat you are actually to your partners and your clients. So what kind of risks are we talking about? There's quite a range of different things. You can be attacked just randomly. There are all kinds of things going across the internet that are just searching for open systems. Some of the attacks are destructive in nature, where they're trying to do damage to your actual system, and they're trying to do damage and take things. We've got it at a national level, where there's actual nation-state warfare going on. We've got people that are out there doing spying, if you will. It could be at the corporate level, looking for intellectual property, or it could be at a government level, looking for information, not necessarily trying to shut you down, but snooping around and trying to find out what's going on. We've got risks in email, which is a huge one. Logins and accessibility is very big. We've got nefarious characters coming after financial and personal information, medical information, and then we have a group of people that are out there, mad about a social issue, and they be trying to cause problems as well. Now, from a technical standpoint, I'm not going to go into what any of these are, but I just wanted to begin the conversation to say these are the types of things that are going on your systems. And as a small business, you're relying on maybe probably one IT person. There's a lot of things that can be happening on your system that you would not notice. And so from a technical standpoint, vulnerability assessments need to be done by an outside firm to help you find these holes and the gaps. So what's a vulnerability, right? It's basically just a weakness. It's a weakness, but it's not just on your system. It could be your procedures. It could be controls. It could be the way that you are having your own staff access your own system that causes an unknown weakness. So what kinds of things are threats to businesses? What's a spoof? Spoofing means the attack is actually trying to make you or them look like they're coming from a different location. So let's say you're on a boat. You could break in somebody's system on that boat and actually make the boat look like it's in a different location than where it physically is. Same thing with your business. could just be looking around, trying to capture information. It could be actually trying to change behavior. So social engineering is all about changing human behavior at a number of different levels. People can get in and change their own system privileges to be allowing them to do more than they were intended to do. And now we've got this thing called ransomware, where the nefarious character is actually taking control of your system, locking it up, and demanding money be paid in something called bitcoins, which they buy on the internet and trade electronically so that they're able to get cash to release your system. Lots of different vectors here. We've got things like stealing identities. We have email scams going on, trying to trick you into giving out information. We have very targeted emails going after specific people with specific company details to get you to respond. So it looks very much like you are you're getting a legitimate kind of an email. Certainly, everybody's familiar with spam. We get inundated with all kinds of things. Compromised web pages. Web pages that take you or do things that you don't expect to happen. Big question is, who is it that's behind that computer? What's going on? You don't really know who all the different characters are that are out. We've heard a lot lately on the news about nation-state cyber attacks, right? We've got China and we've got Russia setting up very large organizations to do nefarious activities. And it's not just them as well. There's other countries. The United States is not sitting there doing nothing either. Everyone is trying to watch everyone. Then we have the North Koreans trying to join the fray, so that's stepping things up as well. I'm not going to go into the whole discussion about this last ransomware attack. I think you've all heard a bit about it. But again, that's another large entity that's trying to do damage. And what are they after? They could be after business information. They could be after your intellectual property, especially with a small business where you have something very unique. They could actually be after taking that intellectual property rather than causing your system to go down or denying access to your system. Certainly, folks have been after personally identifiable information. They could be after your resources to find out how you conduct business from a manufacturing standpoint on the production line up to the way that you are moving money from across bank accounts. They could actually be trying to disrupt your business operations, especially if you think about it, if you're doing business with the Department of Defense, any of the entities there. As a supplier, you're providing something to DoD. If a bad guy can disrupt that operation, then they disrupt and they change the focus of people within DoD, start wasting their time, start causing delays, start causing errors, start embedding viruses on chips that are going out on your finished goods. That's creating more and more problems as well. They may not necessarily want you. They may want your supply chain. So you are the link to a number of different entities. You are the link to larger customers, larger suppliers. You could be a 20-person company, but if you provide a connection to the Department of Defense or you provide a connection to a Fortune 100 company, guess what? That's how they get hooked in. So what is information security and where does cybersecurity fit? Cybersecurity is one slice of the pie. It's one piece of the whole security platform that your business needs to provide. You've got physical security, meaning how are you getting into the building, as well as electronic security. What kind of security are you providing for your own to ensure that your own personnel are behaving appropriately? How are you providing security for privacy of information, your operations? How are you going to recover from breaches and other kinds of business disruption? So it's not just a matter of recovering your data or getting your system back up and running, but what about all of the interactions that you've got with your suppliers, your reputation, your bankers, all those kinds of things? What's information security? What are we trying to secure? We're trying to secure confidentiality of information. We're trying to secure the integrity of the system, and we're trying to ensure the availability of the system so that your operations are not disrupted and that the data is valid and reliable. So there's a number of things that you have to consider besides just the technical pieces of things. In the past, where money has been spent is on prevention. You build, what's known as the Iron Dome, or a, kind of a moat concept where you're surrounding yourself with protection, but there is no such thing as full protection. So the bad guys are able to get through. Now the investment money and capital is moving toward investing in detection services and detection software. Identifying the attack in the moment so that you stop the attack and you mitigate the damage before it gets overwhelming and shuts down your whole system, before it shuts down your operations. And then also responses. What actions are you going to take, both human and automated, to be able to isolate those attacks and prevent the damage from getting out of hand? That's where we're starting to see a lot more movement in business growth in terms of services and products. And then finally, how do you recover from all this? So we'll talk about some of these things, but you need to fix the damage, not just get your system back up and running, but fix the damage to your reputation and your operation. Now, we've got a number of folks that came to the presentation today that are from manufacturing environments. Don't just think about your corporate information system in terms of your accounting systems, billing systems, customer relationship management. Think about the manufacturing line itself. Think about the intellectual property that you have stored on your systems, that if they were stolen and reproduced in another country that doesn't have intellectual property protection, your business can go down the drain. On the manufacturing lines, we have programmable logic controllers running on that equipment that were designed back in the 1980s. There's no security there. So the bad guys can get in and they could infect your finished goods. They could disrupt your manufacturing line. They could actually change your product so that it goes out faulty. So there's a number of different things, especially with this whole concept of the Internet of Things, that you need to start to think about. Small companies are the weakest link in all of this. Remember that you're part of that larger supply chain. So we've got the Internet of Things now coming at us. Smart chips are going to be on everything. You're going to have chips and intelligence running everything from your refrigerator to your car to remote vehicles that are delivering things, televisions, and what have you. Research company Gartner last year predicted that there were approximately 6 billion different types of devices connected to the internet back in 2016, and that will grow by a factor of nearly 4 within the next 4 to 5 years. So we're talking about billions and billions of devices sending information up and down the wire. A couple things to think about. 20% of all cyber attacks and upwards of 45% of spear phishing attacks are aimed at companies with less than 250 employees. Of the small companies that get breached, because everybody's getting attacked all the time. You get your firewall and your virus software up there protecting yourself. But of the things that get through and breach your systems, 60% of small businesses, companies under 250 employees, do not recover and go out of business completely within 6 months. Small businesses are less rigorously secured, therefore they're easy for the bad guys to get into. There are a lot of regulations coming down the wire. Every different industry is starting to create its own cybersecurity requirements. So the federal agencies have requirements. Department of Defense has requirements. Healthcare has HIPAA requirements. Banking and insurance in the financial industry. I found this interesting in that research that the Fed did said that just in looking at manufacturers, companies are spending more money trying to comply with the regulations, internal operations, and documenting things than they are actually trying to secure the network, the equipment, or their people. And that survey was just done last year. So we're putting money into things that are not improving our security. There's a new one out that if you're doing business with the Department of Defense and you haven't heard of this yet, you need to go look this up. And the next couple slides, I'm giving you the specific places to look. In your contract, using this regulation, you have to be compliant with the terms of the regulation by the end of this year. Right now, there's no fines or penalties, but if you are not in compliance and you're signing a contract that says you are, you could now be considered in breach of contract. You could be considered doing business with the DoD in a fraudulent manner, and that could impact future business or even existing contracts and have things eliminated because you're not complying with that regulation. So the very specific things that you need to look up is that federal acquisition regulation. That's the master reg. And then you have DFARS specific reg, which is a supplement that links you to, that requires you to follow the specification of a NIST special publication that I've listed here for you. All these things are downloadable on the web. You go to the National Institute Standards and Technology at NIST, and you download the specifications. And there are I think it's up now to 130 control areas that are indicating both procedurally as well as technically what you should be doing to protect controlled and unclassified information. And there's a whole list of things that are considered controlled unclassified information. We could spend the whole day talking about just this. But consider this. This affects both the prime contractors and all of the subcontractors on that contract. So the prime contractor is responsible for ensuring that the subcontractors are in compliance. So it goes up and down the chain. Many small business CEOs think that get some virus protection, put in a firewall, let's do some spam filtering, and we're protected. And that is not going to protect the assets of the business. It is part of what you need to do, but we're going to start to get into some of the things that the CEO level needs to consider. This is not just an IT problem. This is a leadership problem that focuses on risk management. It's not about just going to the IT person and say, hey, this is your problem, you know, keep us safe. It's now being able to recognize where your vulnerabilities are and recognize that from a C-level point of view, you're making decisions that can affect how your business is viewed across your supply chain. So you're implementing operational decisions that have a lot of impact on the business going forward. So how do we solve these things? What can the small business do to try to address some of this? Well, first of all, understand that you are already compromised. Okay, you've probably been breached. You probably have something there. You've got risk exposure to your intellectual property, your information within your business, your connections, and that type of thing. You've got risk exposure in your manufacturing and production line, and you've got risk exposure to the actual end product that's going out to your customers. As another point of reference, Travelers Insurance provided more evidence that smaller businesses are being breached, and when they are breached, it's much harder for them to respond and to recover and to actually stay in business. Right now, healthcare and financial organizations are the most breached industries out there. When you recover from a breach and you say, well, what is it going to cost me to recover from this? You think, well, okay, I just got to get my system back up and running. There's a lot more to it that you need to consider. Lost business, being sued and defending yourself, being able to prove your cybersecurity posture to outsiders. You could be extorted through ransomware. You could have to pay somebody to discover the causes and the breadth of the damage that it's done. It could be fined by the government and other regulators, right? There's a lot of cost. The big one in here really is loss of your intellectual property. That's the crown jewels of your business. And if somebody steals that, your entire organization is faced with going out of business. So there's a number of different views on what these costs are to look like. You know, it ranges pretty widely. What I'm starting to see is that smaller, really small businesses, under 50 employees, when they're buying cyber insurance, are looking at payments from cyber insurance companies of approximately $56,000 up to a little bit larger businesses going up into the $150,000 of reimbursement. The question is, what's the total loss that you might incur from this prior list? When you add up all of these components, are these payments going to be enough? Cyber insurance is something that you should be looking at as part of your overall risk management plan and your potential loss from cybersecurity breaches and threats. If I've had anybody dial in on the phone, if you could mute your phone. I think I've muted everybody. I'm just going to take one quick stop and see if I've muted everybody here. Okay, so I've muted everybody. I think we should not have any more of the background sound. So what is risk? Risk is the probability of a negative outcome, the impact of that outcome over a period of time. This is what your business leaders need to start to think about. What's the probability that your business will get breached? What's the impact and the cost of that breach? And how are you looking at it in a specific period of time? Because now you're going to balance both what you do operationally, what you do technically, and what you do with buying outside cybersecurity insurance. I'm not going to go through all these. I'm going to make this presentation available online so you can download the PDF and refer to this offline as well. These are the issues that your senior executives in your business need to start thinking about in terms of cybersecurity. It's, again, not the IT piece, but it's a number of other pieces that expose your business to risk. And then how do you prioritize the money and time that you're going to spend on each of these issues? And each of these issues is driven by the probability that they're going to happen, the impact to your business, and how are you going to mitigate that risk? Are you going to do it operationally, technically, or you do it with insurance? Now, if you haven't heard of this yet, this is a structure that you could use to begin your journey here to increasing your security posture. The NIST organization, National Institute of Standards and Technology, created the cybersecurity framework to be able to help businesses document and identify their vulnerabilities and start the planning process to mitigate those vulnerabilities. So it begins with identifying what your assets are, both technical assets as well as your process and intellectual property assets. Anything that you're trying to protect. How are you protecting them? What kinds of processes, procedures, and software are in place? How are you detecting when you're attacked? How are you responding when you're attacked? And how are you going to recover when your company gets breached? This is just a different way of looking at it. This is basically a breakdown of how you can walk through your business to be able to identify the vulnerabilities and link it to the probability of loss, and do it in a structured way so that when you do show an outsider, and it could be a potential customer, it could be a potential insurance carrier, the more secure of a partner you are, the more advantage you have in trying to do business without those outside entities. So what are the steps to stronger cybersecurity? What can you do? Again, prioritizing and scoping your assets that need to be protected. You can't protect everything, so we want to start with those crown jewels, and we want to say, how do we make sure that the key things are protected, and then how are we going to apply the money to be able to protect them? How are we going to link all of your systems, regulatory requirements, and your risk management approach to those vulnerabilities? How are you looking, do you know where you are today, what your current profile is? Do you know how to do and step through and conduct a risk assessment so that you can create a target profile of where you want to be? So you're not as secure as you want to be next year. So what are you going to do, and how are you going to step through improving your security? Finding the gaps, and then implementing an action plan and applying the priorities and the money. Those are the steps that we work with our clients to go through to be able to identify where their weaknesses are and to be able to help them get stronger. What's the process? What's a risk management process? Without going through all the details, this is the risk management framework, which is basically saying understand where you are today, understand where your gaps and your holes are, build yourself a plan, not just from a cybersecurity standpoint, but from an entire information security plan and recovery plan, not just protection, but recovery. Then communicating within the organization, training and updating, and then continually monitoring those risks over time. So it's not a one and done. It is a process of improving your business over an extended period of time. You want to you want to mitigate risk, and that includes outside entities. You can do internally, improving your security posture. You can transfer the risk to your supply chain partners. How do you do that? You can do that contractually. And there's going to be a lot more of this in the future, where there's going to be specific contract language as to who is responsible when breaches happen. If a breach comes through you and goes to your supply partner, who is responsible for the fact that that happened? If you opened up a door to your partner's system inadvertently and caused them damage, they are going to try to come after you to recover those damages. You can implement security policies and train your people to avoid the risk completely. You can purchase cybersecurity insurance. You can also look at getting your contract language up, modernized, so that the proper protection is put in there so that you can't be sued, or it gives you the protection to go after someone else who caused your system to fail or be damaged. Now, here's some very specific things that you can do today that doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take going out and hiring another company to do. These are some things that you can take action on today that will begin to improve your security posture. As much as we hear about spamming, emails, and this kind of thing, that is still the #1 place where breaches and cybersecurity damage occurs, is within and use of email systems. You have to train your people on their use of not just email now, but social media. And you have to train your people on recognizing and how to recognize these the scam emails that come in. Trust me, they're not just all from Nigerian princes. These can be very sophisticated. Very large organizations have been scammed for very large amounts of money because the attacker knows the time of day and the circumstances when you're most vulnerable. Friday afternoons at 4:55, when you get an email from the CEO, people probably are going to open it. And when they open it, they're in a hurry, and that's when they aren't thinking, and that is when the bad guys get in. Training your folks to clean keep their own machines clean, not just from a server standpoint, but from a smartphone standpoint, even your printers. You have to keep the device, all of those different devices, security updated. Always update those patches, because those security patches are critical. Update as much as you can to the most current level of operating systems, both your servers and your PCs. I run up against clients all the time where folks are still using XP on their laptops and their desktops, and there is no security, running on XP to be able to keep you safe from what's going on today. Implementing firewalls. Some companies aren't, believe it or not, some of these things that I say, companies are not doing some of the basics. The area that you really should focus on here today is mobile devices, because people are bringing their own devices or you're supplying devices, and that is the wild, wild west. Updating passwords, using smartphones to connect remotely rather than using the wireless device at the Starbucks or the hotel is #1. Stop using Starbucks and hotel wireless to connect to your corporate assets. Use the security that is available. And some of these things are not expensive. They're more operational in nature, Make sure you're backing things up. And again, it seems common sense. Everybody goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're not doing that. The less you're backing up your smartphones and your laptops, the more damage you suffer when something bad happens. User accounts. It's all about passwords and administration privileges. Limit the amount of things a particular password is allowed to do, or a particular login. The employee may not even be aware of it. This is not the fact that they know it and will take action. But if you're setting up their user accounts and you're giving them more capability and privileges, if somebody steals those user accounts and those passwords and they get into your system, they have more of an open door to do things and you're making it easier for the bad guy to do things on your system. Make sure your Wi-Fi devices are secured. Make sure you're encrypting them. Make sure that you're making it hard for people to recognize how to get into your system. Password protects all of those devices. Look at how you're using payment cards, corporate payment cards. Are you using anti-fraud services? How are you using different payment systems, both accepting payments from your clients, from your customers, as well as the folks that are going out in the world using different cards on your behalf as part of your conducting business. Limiting access, role-based security, you're going to hear that a lot. The role that you have in the organization should be the primary way that IT is setting up accounts, privileges, passwords, and that kind of thing. And making sure that software installations are also role-based, permission-based, and have passwords on them as well. Again, another really simple thing is passwords. Changing them all the time, not allowing people to put passwords on sticky notes and attaching them to their monitors in their offices, or sticking them in the drawer or on the bottom of the coffee pad, right? Those things are critical to the first line of defense. If you're not doing the first line of defense, then the fifth layer of defense may not be relevant. And training. You know, often, more of it, little bits on a continual basis to keep it top of mind. Do multi-factor authentication as much as you can. It's not just a password, but if you're using a card and a password, or if you're using fingerprint and a password, whatever, there's a number of different types of authentication solutions available on the market. Now, what I'm going to leave you with here today is you could go to this link if you're so inclined and download a self-assessment that we're making available to you at no charge. This is aimed at helping you understand your first line of vulnerabilities. Some of it is going to be technology oriented, where you'll have to have your IT folks take a look at it. Some of it is about your processes and your procedures. Procedures and the way that you conduct business have security factors that are making you more or less secure. So feel free to download that. I think it's going to ask you for your email and phone number. We're not going to be robocalling you and harassing you about once you've downloaded this. This is, you know, from the Commonwealth of Virginia standpoint and at the federal level, we have to help small businesses become more secure, because they are the weak link, and that's our mission. That's what we are put together to do as a state agency is to support and help small businesses across the state of Virginia. Well, the Commonwealth, because we're not state. So in summary, and then we'll conclude here. If you've got any questions, again, feel free to type them in the box. I'll unmute it. I'm going to unmute it actually right now. We're going to do this. Unmute. I'm going to unmute you, and the phone folks are unmuted. If you have any questions, you know, shout them out or type them in the little box for me. But in summary, a couple things here. This is just the Wild West. It's just starting. It's not going to go away. Head in the sand management is not going to get the job done if you want to stay in business for the long haul. If you're out there conducting business, you're connected, you have employees who are on a computer, you're a target. Somebody's coming after you. Also keep this in mind too, as I talk about employees. People being people, when they get mad, they leave for whatever reason. That's a vulnerability. They go home, they have their work phone. They go home and they have their passwords. They go home and they have access to information. Somebody gets terminated from a company, you really have to think about locking down that security. Somebody quits from your organization, you really have to think about locking down that security. You hire somebody. Be careful as you are giving them permission and access to different things. Be very, very clear about what you are giving them access to and why you're doing it. Because, you know, the more access they have, the more vulnerability there is to the system. Now, on the other hand, we can be so secure that we can't conduct business, right? So you can't be ridiculous with this. But on the other hand, remember that people being people, we do dumb things, sometimes without, you know, without doing it on purpose. And sometimes people do mean things for a variety of reasons. And so while you want to trust your employees, you also have to have a certain sheriff mentality that says, you know, be cautious but verify. You know, as Reagan said, trust but verify. Lots of compliance and regulatory issues are coming up that you are going to have to be aware of as you're doing business electronically. Remember that a majority of small businesses that get breached are not recovering at all and are going out of business. And there is an affordable way to put this together. What our approach here within Virginia is to help small cyber technology companies connect with companies, because it's harder and it's expensive for startup cyber companies to get out there and conduct business with you folks. It's just harder and harder to get those relationships going. So we're trying to help them and connect them to actual businesses conducting business in Virginia. So that's what I have for you today. Please feel free to contact me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to connect you with the right resource to give you helpful processes and procedures to work on. GENEDGE is actually going through this process ourselves. We're taking our own medicine, and we're dealing with the same types of pain that you guys are, because GENEDGE is about a 35-person organization, so we're all swimming upriver together. So with that, I'm going to conclude the webinar. Thank you. We're going to post this all up on the website where you found us on the cybersecurity sign-up page, and hope to talk to you all in the near future. Thanks for your attendance, and have a good rest of the week. Goodbye.